to YouTube videos!
Oh, hi, thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of garbage.
The boys meet My Little Pony, Shadows of Harmony. Chapter 1, The Rift. The 97th floor laboratory of Vought Tower was a sterile cathedral dedicated to corporate greed and scientific hubris. The air was unnaturally cold, recycled through high-efficiency filters that could never quite remove the underlying metallic tang of chemicals and the faint coppery hint of past failed experiments. Rows of harsh fluorescent lights hummed overhead like angry insects, casting sharp, unforgiving shadows across the white-tiled floors and banks of glowing monitors that displayed constantly fluctuating data streams. Scientists in full hazmat suits moved with frantic precision, their faces hidden behind reflective visors, but their hunched shoulders and hurried gestures betrayed deep anxiety. Every few seconds, one of them would mutter readings into a headset or adjust a dial with trembling fingers. Behind a thick wall of reinforced observation glass sat the Vought executives, sleek, well-fed men and women in tailored suits who reclined in ergonomic leather chairs, sipping artisanal coffee from branded mugs while casually discussing quarterly projections and marketing tines. To them, this was just another product launch, another way to expand the SUPS brand into new territories. They treated the dangerous energies swirling in the center of the room like a mildly interesting PowerPoint slide. Dominating the lab was a colossal reinforced containment tank, its walls thick enough to survive a small nuclear blast. Inside, the violent crimson liquid of Compound V churned and bubbled aggressively, now heavily laced with jagged, pulsating blue crystals that throbbed with an unnatural, almost living rhythm. These crystals had been acquired through the darkest back channels, a shady dealer in a rain-soaked alley who had rambled wildly about tears in the veil between worlds, energies that hunger and realities that should never touch. Vought had paid him handsomely and asked no further questions. Power was power, and questions were for the weak. The Deep stood front and center in his ridiculous, gaudy fish-scale suit, trying desperately to project confidence he didn't possess. He gestured grandly toward the tank with both arms spread wide. "This is Project Harmony, Homelander, sir. By perfectly fusing Compound V with these interdimensional blue crystals, we're going to engineer an entire generation of SUPs capable of controlling minds and crowds through waves of positive vibes and feel-good emotional energy. No more fighting public opinion. They'll love us instantly. Think of the branding opportunities. Sunshine, rainbows, corporate-approved happiness. It'll be revolutionary." Homelander hovered motionless above the tank, his iconic red, white, and blue cape fluttering slightly in the lab's artificial air currents. His blonde hair was sculpted to television perfection, not a strand out of place. His face wore that wide, all-American smile, the one that charmed millions on camera, but sent chills down the spines of anyone who truly knew the monster behind it. His eyes, however, were cold and calculating. "It had better work exactly as advertised, Kevin," Homelander said, in a deceptively calm, silky voice that carried an undercurrent of pure menace. "I am surrounded by failures and disappointments every single day. If this little science project of yours backfires even slightly, if it so much as gives me a headache, I will personally laser your head off your pathetic shoulders, scoop out whatever passes for a brain in there, and use your hollow skull as a decorative fishbowl for whatever sad aquatic pets you still keep. Do I make myself perfectly clear?" The Deep swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing visibly. "Crystal clear, sir." Chained tightly to reinforced titanium posts along one wall were the captured members of the boys and their reluctant ally. Billy Butcher stood with his jaw clenched, so tight it looked painful, his eyes burning with decades of raw, unfiltered hatred as he glared daggers at every Vought employee in sight. Huey Campbell looked pale and sick to his stomach, sweat beading on his forehead as he shifted uncomfortably in his restraints. Frenchie muttered a continuous stream of rapid French curses, his sharp eyes darting around the room, assessing every possible weak point in the equipment and guards. Kimiko Miyashiro remained deathly silent, her body coiled like a spring as she methodically tested the limits of her chains with the patience of a predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Queen Maeve simply slumped in her bonds, her expression one of deep, bone-weary exhaustion after years of being used, manipulated, discarded, and forced back into the spotlight by the very corporation she had once tried to believe in. Butcher spat a thick glob of saliva directly onto the pristine white floor. You pathetic, suit-wearing, profit-chasing cunts never learn a single fucking thing, do you? Every single time you arrogant pricks play God with your fancy chemicals and stolen artifacts, the entire world ends up bleeding for it. Keep pushing buttons and twisting things you don't understand, and reality is going to fuck you so hard you'll wish you never crawled out of whatever corporate womb shat you out. Huey whispered urgently from his position, voice shaky with fear, "Butcher, please, for the love of God, maybe don't actively taunt the flying laser-eyed psychopath while we're all chained up like lab rats waiting to be dissected." Frenchie glanced sideways at Kimiko, his voice low and tense. "This entire setup is screaming disaster from every angle, Moan Army. It feels exactly like mixing pure nitroglycerin with cheap champagne and hoping nothing explodes in our faces. We are not walking away from this one without scars, if we walk away at all." Ignoring the threats and warnings completely, the Deep flipped the large red activation switch with exaggerated theatrical flair. The blue crystals inside the tank immediately erupted in a blinding cascade of otherworldly light. The red compound V and the alien blue energy slammed together in a violent, cataclysmic reaction that shook the entire floor. Warning alarms blared deafeningly throughout the lab. Scientists screamed and scrambled desperately for the exits. The executives' smug expressions instantly melted into masks of pure terror as they pounded on the observation glass, demanding to be let out. A massive, jagged rift tore violently open in the very fabric of reality itself, a howling, swirling vortex of impossible colors. The gray concrete and steel skyscrapers of New York seemed to melt and twist into vibrant green meadows. Harsh city sirens distorted into cheerful birdsong. The heavy stench of blood, chemicals, and corruption mixed unsettlingly with the sweet, fresh aroma of flowers and baked goods. The portal screamed like a living thing. Homelander was violently sucked into the rift first. His roar of pure rage and confusion cut off mid-scream as the portal consumed him. The rest of the group, Butcher, Huey, Frenchie, Kimiko, and Maeve, tumbled after him in a chaotic, tangled mess of limbs, capes, chains, and shouted profanity as the dimensional tear swallowed them all whole. They spiraled helplessly through an endless, disorienting tunnel of clashing dimensions. Nightmarish flashes of bloody Vought boardrooms and exploding heads dissolved into sunlit rolling hillsides. Violent city explosions faded into harmonious music and laughter. The oppressive weight and darkness of their own world gave way to something lighter, brighter, and almost painfully wholesome. Time stretched and compressed in nauseating ways until, with a final jarring jolt, the entire group crashed hard onto soft, emerald-green grass beneath a flawless, cloudless blue sky. The air around them was warm, impossibly clean, and carried the sweet scent of ripe apples and fresh sugar. They had materialized directly in the middle of Friendship City's bustling central plaza, right in the heart of a lively harvest festival. Ponies of every color, along with griffins, yaks, changelings, and dragons, froze mid-celebration, staring in wide-eyed shock at the strange, costumed bipeds who had literally fallen from a tier in the sky. Homelander immediately rocketed upward into the air, his eyes igniting with bright, dangerous crimson fury. What the fuck is this rainbow-colored hellscape? Where the hell am I? Before the echo of his shout could even fade, a pink blur shot toward them at impossible speed. Pinkie Pie launched herself like a living cannonball and tackled Frenchie into a suffocating but affectionate hug. New friends from another dimension, you all look so angry and dark and edgy, and like you haven't had a real, genuine smile or thrown a proper party in years. This is absolutely perfect. We're throwing the biggest. Most epic, welcome to peaceful post-Grogger Equestria, you're all clearly traumatized, party right this second. With mountains of cupcakes, balloons, streamers, party hats, and maybe some completely safe-ish explosions for extra fun. Frenchie wheezed under the assault of affection and frosting, but a genuine grin broke across his face despite everything. She is pure concentrated sugar mixed with beautiful, glorious war crimes. I am both deeply in love and legitimately terrified at the same time. Butcher slowly pulled out a cigar and lit it with shaking hands, staring at the joyful utopia surrounding them. Colorful market stalls filled with fresh goods, laughing foals playing games, banners everywhere celebrating friendship and harmony. If this is death, the universe has one sick, twisted fucking sense of humor. Or maybe I've finally lost my mind completely, and this is my personal, pastel-colored hell. The dimensional clash of worlds had only just begun. Chapter 2, First Contact. A brilliant flash of magenta magic erupted in the middle of the bustling plaza, cutting through the stunned silence like a beacon of order amid the chaos. Twilight Sparkle materialized with the graceful authority she had spent years perfecting as Princess of Equestria. Her royal regalia gleamed under the warm afternoon sun, the crown of friendship sat comfortably on her head, her ornate chest piece and golden horseshoes polished to a mirror shine. Her wings were neatly folded at her sides, and her expression was one of calm, collected curiosity rather than fear. Beside her stood Spike, now a tall, broad-shouldered adult dragon with deep purple scales and a confident posture. He held a clipboard in one claw and a quill in the other, ever the organized assistant who had grown into a respected advisor in his own right. "Every creature, please remain calm," Twilight called out, her voice carrying across the square with practiced royal warmth that immediately began easing the tension among the festival-goers. Ponies, griffins, and other beings lowered their raised hooves and claws, though many still whispered excitedly. Dimensional rifts are rare occurrences, but we have successfully managed far stranger events in the years since Grogger's defeat. These visitors appear disoriented and possibly hostile out of fear. Let's greet them with open hearts and the spirit of friendship that has guided us through every challenge we've faced as a nation. Starlight Glimmer trotted up beside her former mentor, her mane slightly tousled from the rushed teleport. As the respected head mayor of the thriving School of Friendship, she scanned the newcomers with sharp intellectual curiosity, her horn glowing faintly as she performed quick magical scans. Their power signatures are entirely chemical-based Compound V, if my initial readings are accurate. It's primitive, volatile, and dangerously unstable compared to the balanced harmonics of friendship magic. This is fascinating from a theoretical standpoint, and a little terrifying from a practical one. We should get them to the castle for proper analysis, hospitality, and de-escalation. Huey Campbell, still trying to process the impossibly bright and colorful world around him, stared up at the purple alicorn princess with wide, disbelieving eyes. "You're actually in charge here, like the actual ruler of this entire place, and no one looks terrified of you. Everyone just seems genuinely happy, smiling. This has to be some kind of fever dream after whatever Vought pumped into us back in that lab." Twilight offered him a gentle, reassuring smile that somehow felt genuine rather than calculated. "Friendship rebuilt our entire society stronger after every darkness we endured, Tayek, Chrysalis, Cozy Glow, Grogger, all of them. We've learned that true strength comes from connection, understanding, and trust, not domination or fear. Come with us to the Crystal Castle. We'll have tea, explain our worlds to each other, and figure this out together. No one here will harm you, I promise." While the larger group began moving under Twilight's guidance, Rarity, now an internationally renowned fashion icon with flagship boutiques across Equestria and beyond, had already zeroed in on Queen Maeve like a predator sensing untapped potential. The elegant unicorn circled Maeve slowly, her critical eye taking in every detail of the soup's current armor. "Oh darling, that armor, it's so functional for combat, yes, but it screams corporate exploitation and last-decade aesthetics. The red and gold could be so much more empowering if given the proper treatment. You simply must visit my flagship boutique immediately. After designing refined armor for the Royal Guards through the post-Grogger reforms, I have very clear visions for transforming you into the warrior queen you clearly deserve to be." Maeve, exhausted from years of Vaught's sleazy marketing, objectification, and empty promises of heroism, actually let out a tired but genuine chuckle. After being forced into skimpy outfits for focus groups, ratings stunts, and whatever sick fantasies the executives dreamed up for the cameras, yeah, let's do it. I'm done looking like their corporate whore. The two disappeared into Rarity's sprawling flagship boutique, a building filled with bolts of enchanted fabrics, racks of shimmering gems, and worktables covered in design sketches. For the next several hours, Rarity's team worked with incredible focus. Enchanted fabrics that shimmered with protective spells were carefully fitted, shimmering gems that caught light like living fire were embedded strategically, and threads woven with durability runes were stitched with precision. When Maeve finally emerged, she wore a stunning set of sleek crimson and gold armor with flowing accents that allowed full mobility while radiating regal power and elegance. She ran her hands over the new material, staring at her reflection in a full-length mirror with rare vulnerability in her eyes. For the first time in years, I actually feel like a real hero, like someone who could lead instead of just follow orders and smile for the cameras. Thank you. Meanwhile, at Sugarcube Corner, still the vibrant heart of joy in Friendship City, run by Mr. and Mrs. Cake, with Pinkie Pie serving as the official party master general, Pinkie had completely overwhelmed Frenchie and Kimiko. She bounced around them like a sugar-fueled tornado, force-feeding them experimental cupcakes filled with flavors that defied normal logic and demonstrating party cannons upgraded during years of peaceful celebrations. Try this one. It launches confetti and sparkles and a tiny surprise hug. Oh, and this flavor is called Sorry You Fell Through a Portal, extra sprinkles for dimensional travelers. Frenchie, covered in frosting but laughing harder than he had in years, wiped his face with the back of his hand. She turns the world's pain into pure celebration. In my world, we only know how to destroy things. This is magnifique. I never want to leave this beautiful madness. Miko, whose deep trauma had been tempered, but never erased by her time with the boys, found herself smiling genuinely as the now-adult cutie mark Crusaders, Apple Bloom, Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle, who now ran their own successful adventure mentorship program, declared her an honorary member on the spot, and gifted her a custom reinforced cloak with hidden knife pockets and durable stitching. Kimiko signed fluidly with her hands. These small ones understand strength and fun. I feel safe here. Homelander, after losing spectacularly to Rainbow Dash in their impromptu race, complete with multiple sonic rainbooms that shook the sky, returned to the ground fuming with barely contained rage, only to be met by Fluttershy, refined, piercing stare. The yellow Pegasus, now a renowned sanctuary master with years of experience calming even the most dangerous creatures, landed gently in front of him. Excuse me, but yelling really scares the little animals and our friends, she whispered gently but firmly, her eyes locking onto his. Please be nice, we don't want anybody getting hurt. Under her calming influence, and with a basket of therapy bunnies from her expansive animal sanctuaries, Homelander awkwardly held one of the tiny creatures. The bunny nuzzled against his suit without fear, causing the first tiny cracks to appear in his godlike facade. Long, revealing conversations stretched across the rest of the day as the group made their way toward the Crystal Castle. The boys shared fragmented stories of Vort's horrors, while the ponies listened without judgment, offering hard-earned wisdom from their own battles against ancient evils. The culture shock ran deep on both sides, Vort's cynical corruption versus Equestria's genuine, hard-won harmony. The first true contact between the two worlds had been made, and it was already beginning to change everyone involved. Chapter 3, Bonds Begin to Form. The morning sun rose gently over Friendship City, bathing the crystal spires of Twilight's castle and the colorful rooftops below in a warm, golden light. The air was filled with the cheerful sounds of daily life, vendors calling out fresh goods at the market, foals laughing as they played, and the distant rhythmic thud of hammers from ponies continuing reconstruction and improvement projects that had become common in the peaceful post-Grogger era. For the boys and Maeve, waking up in guest quarters inside the Crystal Castle felt surreal. Soft beds, clean linens, and the faint scent of lavender from Fluttershy's calming herbs made the contrast with Vort's cold brutality even sharper. Twilight had arranged a full day of tour to help the visitors understand Equestria better. The group split naturally into smaller clusters as they explored the wonders of Friendship City and its surrounding lands. Butcher found himself walking alongside Applejack through the vast, thriving orchards of Sweet Apple Acres. The farm had expanded massively in the years since Grogger's defeat, with new fields, advanced irrigation systems powered by Earth Pony magic, and export routes reaching across Equestria. Applejack trotted confidently, her strong orange frame and trademark hat unchanged by time, though her eyes carried the quiet wisdom of someone who had fought gods and lived to tell the tale. You built all this after tangling with actual tyrants like Tyek, Butcher asked, lighting a fresh cigar as they walked between rows of heavy-laden apple trees. Respect, farm girl. Most people I know would have given up after the first apocalypse. Applejack chuckled, kicking a tree with a powerful buck that sent a cascade of ripe apples into baskets. We learned the hard way that raw strength alone ain't enough. You need heart, community, and good friends standing beside you. What's your story, Butcher? You carry a lot of anger in those eyes. Sounds like you've been fighting your own kind of tyke for a long time. Butcher took a long drag from his cigar and began sharing fragments of his life. Becca's death, Homelander's monstrous crimes, Vort's endless corruption. He spoke gruffly, expecting judgment, but Applejack listened without flinching, offering grounded, no-nonsense advice drawn from her own losses and victories. By the end of their walk, they shared a mug of strong cider at the barn, a tentative but real respect forming between the cynical human and the honest earth pony. Meanwhile, in open fields just outside the city, Frenchie and Pinkie Pie had formed an unlikely but explosive creative partnership. Pinkie had dragged him to one of her favorite testing grounds, where she demonstrated party cannons upgraded with post-Grogger innovations, mechanisms that launched not just confetti, but controlled sparkles, music bursts, and even safe smoke effects. Frenchie's eyes lit up with chaotic delight as he began modifying them with his technical expertise, adding small explosive charges that created beautiful, colorful fireworks. You take the world's pain and turn it into pure celebration, Frenchie said softly, watching a massive rainbow explosion light up the sky. In my world, we only know how to destroy things. You are a miracle, Pinkie, a beautiful, terrifying miracle. Pinkie giggled and bounced around him. And you make things go boom in the prettiest ways. We're gonna throw the best interdimensional parties ever. Their laughter echoed across the fields as they worked together for hours, creating hybrid inventions that blended Frenchie's gritty ingenuity with Pinkie's joyful chaos. Rainbow Dash, still the fastest flyer in Equestria and a Wonderbolts veteran, had challenged Kimiko to a series of sparring sessions in a training meadow. The two moved like blurs, Rainbow's incredible speed meeting Kimiko's precise, deadly knife work and martial prowess. They pushed each other hard, but there was clear mutual admiration. You're awesome, Rainbow Dash cheered after a particularly intense exchange, hovering above Kimiko with a grin. No fancy capes needed when you've got moves like that. You fight like someone who's been through real stuff. Kimiko signed back with a small, genuine smile. You remind me of freedom. Fast, strong, no chains. The adult cutie mark Crusaders occasionally joined in, turning the sparring into playful training exercises that left Kimiko looking more relaxed than anyone from the boys had seen her in years. Huey and Annie Starlight found themselves in deep conversation with Twilight Sparkle and Starlight Glimmer at the School of Friendship. They walked the bustling halls filled with students from every species, ponies, griffins, yaks, changelings, and more, attending classes on magic, friendship, and diplomacy. Your world actually fixed its monsters with friendship speeches, Huey said, in genuine awe as they observed a lecture. Ours just keeps making more of them. Twilight nodded thoughtfully, her expression serious. Not every heart changes, Huey. We learn that the hard way too, but many do when given the chance. There is always hope after the storm, even after Grogger. That's why we built this school, to make sure the next generation understands that. Annie bonded especially closely with Twilight, the two idealists sharing stories of fighting corruption from within systems that tried to control them. Their conversations stretched long into the afternoon, forging a bridge of understanding and quiet inspiration. Queen Maeve spent much of the day with Rarity in the boutique and later at a private tea session. They spoke candidly about being reduced to symbols, Maeve as Vort's corporate heroine, Rarity as the fashion icon who had once been dismissed as frivolous. Vort dressed me like a prop for their empire, Maeve confessed over tea. They took my power and turned it into a brand. Rarity placed a gentle hoof on her hand. Then here, darling, you define your own legend. You are more than their symbol now. By the end of the day, as the group reconvened at the castle for dinner, new bonds had clearly begun to form. laughter mixed with serious conversations, and the sharp edges of the boys' cynicism were slowly being softened, if only a little, by Equestria's genuine warmth. The two worlds were no longer just colliding, they were starting to connect. Chapter 4, Revelations in the Castle. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange, pink, and purple, the crystal castle glowed softly from within, its crystalline walls reflecting the fading light like a beacon of stability in an otherwise chaotic day. The grand throne room had been prepared for a formal yet welcoming gathering. Long tables were lined with plates of fresh fruits, vegetables, hay-based dishes for the ponies, and a variety of meats and comfort foods specially requested for their guests. Candles and magical floating orbs provided warm, gentle lighting, while soft music played from a corner where a small ensemble of musicians practiced. Twilight Sparkle sat at the head of the central table, her regalia removed for the evening to create a more relaxed atmosphere. Spike sat to her right, taking careful notes. The rest of the main six were present: Applejack, Rarity, Rainbow Dash, Pinkie Pie, and Fluttershy, along with Starlight Glimmer. Princess Celestia and Princess Luna had arrived in person as honored advisors, their tall, regal forms commanding quiet respect even in this peaceful era. The boys and Maeve sat across from them, looking distinctly out of place in their battered costumes amid the elegant surroundings. Homelander floated slightly above his seat, arms crossed, trying to maintain his superior demeanor. Butcher slouched with a mug of cider, while Huey, Frenchie, Kimiko, and Maeve shifted uncomfortably but curiously. Celestia spoke first, her voice warm and melodic, carrying the weight of centuries of rule. She looked directly at Homelander, her ethereal mane flowing gently despite the lack of wind. You were forged as a false god in a laboratory, created to be a symbol of hope for your people, yet I sense a deep loneliness in you, the kind that no amount of power or worship can truly fill. Equestria has known tyrants who believed themselves gods. We have seen many of them choose redemption when given the chance. You do not have to carry that heavy mask forever, Homelander. Homelander's perfect smile twitched. He let out a bitter laugh that echoed through the throne room. Save the therapy session, retired Sun Horse. I am superior. I was made to be better than everyone else. You think your colorful little friendship kingdom can teach me anything? His voice cracked ever so slightly at the end. Celestia simply smiled gently, her eyes full of understanding. Many have said similar things before choosing a different path. The mask becomes heavy after a while. When you are ready to set it down, even for a moment, we will be here. Luna, standing beside her sister with a more imposing presence, added in her regal, nocturnal tone, we have both worn crowns that weighed upon our souls. Pride can be a prison as much as any chain. Before Homelander could respond with another biting remark, a flash of chaotic energy filled the room. Discord appeared dramatically, lounging on a floating throne made of cotton candy and mismatched socks. Ooh, I like this one, the spirit of chaos declared, pointing at Homelander. So much deliciously repressed chaos bubbling under that shiny exterior, we should be friends. Butcher barked out a laugh. Finally, someone who gets it, this mismatched cunt speaks my language. Within minutes, Discord and Butcher had bonded like old drinking partners. Discord conjured a barrel of chaos-spiked cider, a brew that made normal cider taste tame by comparison. They swapped stories of revenge and mayhem. Butcher regaled Discord with tales of exploding heads and corporate takedowns, while Discord countered with stories of turning cities into chocolate or ruling Equestria in an age of chaos. Soon they were causing controlled, mostly, mayhem in the castle gardens visible from the throne room windows. Butcher rode a giant rubber flamingo through the air, while Discord summoned dancing pies and floating rubber ducks that quacked insults. Applejack and Fluttershy eventually stepped in with firm but kind intervention. Applejack lassoing the flamingo and Fluttershy giving both troublemakers a softened version of the stare. "You mad apes," Applejack grumbled with a reluctant grin as she helped clean up floating pies. "This is supposed to be a meetin', not a circus." In the castle's advanced laboratory wing, Starlight, Glimmer, and Twilight conducted careful, controlled tests on a small sample of Compound V that Frenchie had reluctantly provided. Under heavy magical containment fields, they observed its effects. One tiny drop caused an apple to mutate wildly, growing tiny angry faces, ranting in garbled English about superiority, then exploding into glitter and sparkles. "This is incredibly unstable," Starlight noted, scribbling furiously. "One wrong emotional trigger and it could cause catastrophic feedback loops. Friendship magic is far more balanced." Huey watched with a haunted expression. "Yeah, that's why our world is the way it is." The most profound moment of the evening came when Annie Starlight sat with Twilight in a quiet corner of the throne room. The two idealists spoke for nearly an hour about the weight of fighting corruption from within broken systems. "I wanted to believe heroes could fix things," Annie confessed, voice soft, "but Vought twists everything good into something ugly." Twilight listened with deep empathy. "We faced similar darkness after Grogger. There were times I doubted whether friendship was enough, but it is when it's real, not forced, not manufactured. Real connection changes hearts, even the darkest ones sometimes." By the end of the long evening, as the group prepared to retire for the night, the throne room felt different. Revelations had been shared, walls had cracked, and the first genuine seeds of trust were taking root. Homelander floated away silently, Celestia's words lingering in his mind. Butcher was still chuckling about his chaos spree with Discord. The rest of the boys looked thoughtful, almost hopeful, a dangerous emotion in their world. The revelations of the night had only just begun to ripple outward. Chapter 5: Chaos, Fun, and Healing. The next day dawned bright and full of possibility in Friendship City. After the heavy emotional revelations of the previous night, Twilight Sparkle had declared it a dedicated day of cultural exchange. A polite way of saying the visitors needed a break from tension, and Equestria's residents were more than happy to show off the best parts of their peaceful post-Grogger world. The day began with Pinkie Pie's latest masterpiece, the Interdimensional Welcome Extravaganza Party. She had taken over one of the large training fields outside the city, turning it into a spectacle of color and controlled chaos. Tents, balloons, and banners stretched as far as the eye could see. Party cannons, now heavily modified thanks to Frenchie's overnight assistance, lined the edges of the field like colorful artillery. Frenchie stood proudly beside Pinkie, wearing a comically oversized party hat and covered in glitter. "Mon dear Pinkie, these modifications are genius. The confetti-to-explosive ratio is perfect. Not too destructive, but enough boom to make it interesting." Pinkie bounced excitedly. "Exactly, we want wow. Not oh no, my house is on fire again." She pulled a lever, and a massive cannon launched a burst of sparkling confetti mixed with safe smoke effects and musical notes that hung in the air like a living symphony. Frenchie laughed with pure delight as he triggered his own modified version, creating beautiful fiery patterns that exploded into harmless rainbow fireworks. The two worked side by side for hours, drawing crowds of ponies, creatures, and even a few curious dragons. Frenchie's gritty, street-smart ingenuity blended seamlessly with Pinkie's boundless joy, creating hybrid inventions that left everyone impressed and slightly terrified. For the first time in years, Frenchie looked truly carefree, his usual haunted expression replaced by childlike wonder. Nearby, Kimiko had been adopted once again by the adult Cutie Mark Crusaders. Apple Bloom, Scootaloo, and Sweetie Belle, now confident young mares running their popular adventure mentorship program, had taken her on a special training adventure through the nearby Everfree Forest outskirts, the safer, well-mapped parts that had been tamed over the years. "You're super quiet and strong, just like a ninja," Scootaloo said enthusiastically as they navigated a rope bridge. "We're gonna help you design your own official Cutie Mark Crusader adventure cloak upgrade." Kimiko moved with graceful precision, helping the trio across tricky terrain and disarming a few harmless but tricky magical traps left over from old chaos events. For once, her body language was relaxed. She signed frequently with a soft smile. "This feels like real teamwork. No orders, no pain." The Crusaders responded with enthusiasm, sharing stories of their own growth since their school days. By the end of the afternoon, Kimiko wore a new reinforced cloak with hidden pockets perfectly suited for her knives, and she looked more at peace than Butcher had seen her in a very long time. Meanwhile, Butcher had once again found himself paired with Discord for more controlled chaos. The two caused minor mayhem in the castle gardens, turning flowers into singing vegetables and making statues dance, until Applejack and Fluttershy intervened. Applejack lassoed a floating rubber duck midair, while Fluttershy gave both of them a gentle but effective stare. "You mad apes," Applejack grumbled, though there was clear amusement in her voice. "This is supposed to be about learning, about each other, not turning the royal gardens into a circus." Butcher wiped pie filling from his face and grinned. "Your chaos spirit here is a man after me own heart. Reminds me there's still some fun left in this fucked-up life." Fluttershy smiled softly. "Chaos can be fun, but only when it doesn't hurt others." The four ended up sitting together under a tree, sharing drinks and stories. Butcher's usual biting cynicism softened slightly as Applejack shared tales of rebuilding after Grogger. Healing was slow, but it was happening. Homelander's day was perhaps the most transformative. Fluttershy had gently but firmly insisted he visit her expansive animal sanctuary on the outskirts of the city. At first, he resisted, floating with crossed arms and a sneer. "I don't need therapy from talking animals, horse." But once there, surrounded by bunnies, birds, bears, and other creatures that showed no fear of him, something shifted. Fluttershy guided him patiently, handing him a tiny baby bunny. "They can sense when someone is hurting," she whispered. "You don't have to be strong all the time here." Homelander held the small creature awkwardly at first, then more gently as it nuzzled against his suit. For several long minutes, the man who had terrified entire cities sat silently, his laser eyes dim and distant. Celestia's words from the night before echoed in his mind. The god complex cracked further under the quiet kindness of the sanctuary. Queen Maeve spent her day training with the royal guards under Rarity's supervision. Wearing her new crimson and gold armor, she sparred with earth ponies and Pegasi. Rediscovering the joy of fighting for something real rather than corporate optics. "I'm done being a symbol," she growled during one intense session, smashing through a training dummy. "I want to be a leader." Rarity watched proudly. "And you shall be, darling, you already are." Huey and Annie found quiet moments exploring the peaceful streets with Spike. They talked about hope, about whether their own dark world could ever find even a fraction of Equestria's harmony. Huey looked out over the colorful city and felt something rare stir in his chest, genuine hope. As the sun set and the group reconvened at the castle for dinner, the day's chaos, fun, and healing had left its mark. Laughter came easier, walls were lower. The two worlds were no longer just surviving each other, they were beginning to enrich one another. But peace never lasted long for the boys. Chapter 6: The Vought Threat Emerges. The peaceful morning after the day of cultural exchange was shattered without warning. Deep within the Crystal Castle, Twilight Sparkle was reviewing notes in her private study when her magical detection crystals began flashing violently. The ancient artifacts, tuned to sense disruptions in the fabric of reality, pulsed with urgent red light. Starlight Glimmer burst into the room moments later, her mane frazzled. "Twilight, the rift, it's unstable again, something coming through." At the same time, in the guest quarters, Butcher's instincts woke him first. He sat up sharply, grabbing the knife he'd hidden under his pillow. "Something's wrong, I can feel it in me gut." The alarm spread quickly. Ponies in the streets looked up as the sky above Sweet Apple Acres tore open once more, a jagged, bleeding wound of red and blue energy. From the unstable portal emerged a Vought strike team, fully armed and ready for war. A-Train was the first through, his blood-red suit gleaming as he skidded to a halt in the middle of an apple orchard, tearing up dirt and trees in his wake. Behind him came Black Noir II, silent and menacing as ever, followed by a squad of heavily armored Vought tactical sups in powered exosuits carrying advanced weaponry. A-Train cracked his neck and smirked. "Homelander wants his property back. Now, hand over the traitors and the weird horse freaks, and maybe we won't level this rainbow shithole." Applejack, who had been checking her orchards early that morning, stepped forward with a heavy frown. "This land survived Tyek, Chrysalis, and Grogger himself. You ain't special, Sugar Cube." Without hesitation, she spun and delivered a powerful buck straight into A-Train's chest as he attempted to speed toward her. The impact sent the speedster flying backward through 3 barns in an explosive crash of wood and hay. Word spread like wildfire across Friendship City. Rainbow Dash shot into the air, leaving a rainbow trail as she sounded the alarm. "We've got invaders, Everpenny to battle stations." Twilight teleported to the scene with Starlight, gathering the main 6 and the boys rapidly. Homelander floated above the group, his eyes already glowing red, with barely contained rage at the sight of Vought forces. "They followed us, of course they did." Butcher grinned darkly, cracking his knuckles. "Finally, some proper violence. I was gettin' soft with all this tea and friendship bollocks." Frenchie and Pinky immediately began setting up defensive positions, wheeling out their modified party cannons, now loaded with more serious ammunition. Kimiko moved like a shadow, already vanishing into the treeline with the Cutie Mark Crusaders to prepare flanking maneuvers. Maeve, in her new crimson and gold armor, stood tall beside Rarity, who had quickly enchanted extra protective gems into the suit. Celestia and Luna arrived soon after, their expressions grave but determined. "We will not allow this darkness to corrupt our home," Celestia declared, her horn glowing with solar power. The battle lines formed quickly near Sweet Apple Acres. Vaught's forces advanced arrogantly, expecting an easy extraction. A train, recovering from Applejack's buck but visibly limping, blurred forward again, only to be met by Rainbow Dash in a high-speed collision that created a shockwave. The 2 speedsters traded blows across the fields in a blur of red and rainbow. Black Noir II moved silently toward Homelander, the 2 sups rising into the air. Their clash was immediate and brutal, lasers clashing against dark blades and raw strength. The sky lit up with red energy as they fought with personal hatred. On the ground, the armored Vought tactical team opened fire with energy weapons. Frenchie and Pinky responded with a barrage from their hybrid cannons, launching explosive confetti mixed with real grenades that disoriented and damaged the power armor. "Taste the rainbow, you corporate bastards," Frenchie yelled. Kimiko and the Crusaders struck from the shadows, dismantling suits with precise knife work and clever traps. Applejack bucked trees to send barrages of apples, some magically enhanced by Twilight, crashing into enemies like cannonballs. Maeve charged forward like a true warrior queen, smashing through armored soldiers with powerful blows. "I'm done being your fucking puppet," she roared, her new armor glowing with Rarity's protective enchantments. Fluttershy, though reluctant to fight, flew above the battlefield using the stare on any Vought soldier who met her eyes, freezing them in place long enough for allies to subdue them. Discord popped in and out of existence, turning weapons into rubber chickens and soldiers into confused potted plants. Butcher fought with savage glee alongside Applejack, using guns, knives, and brutal hand-to-hand combat. "This is more like it," he shouted, covered in dirt and sweat. Twilight coordinated from the center, using her magic to shield allies and disrupt Vought technology. Starlight created powerful magical barriers while analyzing the rift's instability. The Vought threat had emerged with full force, but they had badly underestimated the combined strength of Equestria's harmony and the boys' ruthless determination. The real war for both worlds had begun. Chapter 7, Alliances and Preparation. The immediate chaos of the Vought incursion had been pushed back for the moment, but everyone knew it was only temporary. The invaders had retreated to regroup near the unstable rift site, buying precious time. Twilight Sparkle wasted no time calling an emergency war council in the Crystal Castle's strategic chamber, a large circular room normally used for diplomatic meetings, now repurposed with glowing magical maps, tactical projections, and a massive central table. The air was thick with urgency. Representatives from both worlds gathered around the table. Twilight stood at the head, her expression focused and determined. Beside her were Celestia, Luna, Starlight Glimmer, and the rest of the main 6. The boys and Maeve stood opposite them, looking far more at home in a war room than they had at any tea party. "We don't have much time," Twilight began, her horn glowing as she projected a detailed magical map of the surrounding area. The rift is still unstable, but Vought is pouring reinforcements through it. We need to combine our strengths, your raw determination and combat experience, with our harmony magic and knowledge of the land. Butcher slammed a fist on the table. About fucking time we got serious. Those corporate cunts won't stop until they drag us back or kill us all. Homelander floated near the ceiling, arms crossed, but for once he was listening instead of dominating. The white feather from Celestia remained tucked inside his suit, a silent reminder. Rainbow Dash hovered excitedly. Kimiko and I will handle aerial strikes. We already know how to sync our speeds. We'll tear through their flyers and keep A-Train busy. Kimiko nodded firmly, signing quickly, fast attacks. Silent takedowns, they won't see us coming. Frenchie and Pinkie Pie immediately moved to a side workbench where Pinkie had already dragged several party cannons. We'll upgrade them further, Frenchie said, rolling up his sleeves. Add more explosive yield while keeping the disorientation effects. Confusion is our best weapon against armored troops. Pinkie bounced beside him, and pretty explosions, they'll never expect friendship cannons that actually go boom. Rarity worked quickly on Maeve's armor, adding extra enchanted gems that glowed with protective barriers. You will lead the Royal Guard detachment, darling. Show them what a true queen looks like. Maeve tested her enhanced gauntlets, smashing a practice dummy to splinters. No more playing the corporate hero. This time I fight for something real. Applejack turned to Butcher with a determined grin. You and me on the ground, Sugar Cube, brutal and honest, just how we both like it. We'll lead the main charge and keep those armored bastards occupied. Butcher chuckled darkly. I like your style, farm girl. Let's give M hell. In a quieter corner of the room, Celestia approached Homelander. Power without control is destruction. Let me show you how to focus your abilities more precisely. For the next hour, she guided him through exercises, not to increase his destructive power, but to improve restraint and accuracy. Homelander resisted at first, but eventually complied, his lasers carving precise patterns into practice targets instead of wild blasts. Discord lounged on a floating chair, occasionally snapping his fingers to demonstrate chaotic tricks to Butcher. A little unpredictability goes a long way, my angry friend. Turn their weapons into bananas, their armor into tutus. Chaos is the ultimate fuck you. Starlight, Glimmer, and Twilight worked together on the most critical task, calculating a permanent sealing ritual for the rift. Starlight ran complex magical equations, while Twilight provided power. If we combine friendship harmonics with a focused burst from our allies, we can close it for good, Starlight explained. Huey stayed close to Annie, offering support as she coordinated medical and defensive magic. This is actually working, he said quietly. We are building something real here. As preparations intensified, the castle became a hive of activity. Rainbow Dash and Kimiko drilled aerial maneuvers for hours, creating complex patterns that left rainbow trails mixed with deadly precision strikes. Frenchie and Pinkie tested increasingly spectacular hybrid weapons, their laughter mixing with explosions. Maeve trained the Royal Guards, turning them into a more cohesive and empowered fighting force. Butcher and Applejack planned ruthless but effective ground tactics, mapping choke points around Sweet Apple Acres. Homelander, under Celestia's guidance, showed the first hints of genuine growth, his power becoming more focused, less wild. Even he seemed conflicted by the change. By the time night fell, the alliances had solidified. Two very different groups, one born from corporate evil and cynicism, the other from harmony and friendship, now stood united against a common threat. The preparations were complete. The final battle for the fate of both worlds was about to begin. Chapter 8, The Battle for Harmony. The morning air over Sweet Apple Acres crackled with tension as the unstable rift pulsed like an open wound in the sky. Vaught's reinforcements had fully mobilized during the night. What started as a small strike team had grown into a full invasion force, dozens of armored tactical sups, A-Train leading rapid strikes, and Black Noir II lurking like a silent shadow of death. Twilight Sparkle gave the signal from the command post, every creature now. The battle for harmony erupted in spectacular, chaotic fashion. Homelander rocketed upward with a sonic boom, cape snapping behind him, eyes blazing crimson. Black Noir II met him head-on in a brutal mid-air collision. The two sups clashed with raw, personal hatred. Lasers sliced through the air as Black Noir II swung dark blades and threw explosive punches. Homelander's screams of rage mixed with the thunder of their impacts. For the first time, Homelander wasn't just unleashing wild power. Celestia's training showed as he fired precise, controlled beams that actually landed. Rainbow Dash and Kimiko formed a deadly aerial ground duo. Rainbow blurred across the sky in streaks of color, creating sonic rainbooms that disoriented Vought flyers, while Kimiko leapt between airborne enemies with acrobatic precision, knives flashing. When A-Train tried to blitz through the lines at super speed, Rainbow met him head-on in a high-velocity duel that shook the orchards below. "You're fast, Cape Boy," Rainbow taunted mid-battle, "but I've raced gods." On the fields of Sweet Apple Acres, the main clash unfolded. Butcher and Applejack led the ground assault with savage coordination. Applejack bucked trees with earth-shaking power, sending barrages of magically enhanced apples crashing into armored troops like living cannonballs. Butcher moved like a force of nature beside her, guns blazing, knife work brutal and efficient, cigar still clenched between his teeth. "These corporate cunts picked the wrong fucking dimension," Butcher roared, tackling an armored supe and driving a knife into a weak joint. Maeve charged at the forefront in her crimson and gold armor, a true warrior queen. She smashed through power armor like it was cardboard, her enhanced strength and rarities protective enchantments making her nearly unstoppable. "I'm no one's tool anymore," she bellowed, grabbing a Vought soldier and hurling him into three others. Frenchie and Pinkie Pie operated their hybrid artillery from a reinforced hill. Party cannons thundered repeatedly, launching devastating combinations of explosive confetti, glitter bombs, and real grenades. The colorful explosions created beautiful but deadly chaos, disorienting enemies with flashing lights and music while shredding armor. "Beautiful destruction," Frenchie cheered, adjusting a cannon. Pinkie giggled maniacally beside him as another spectacular blast lit up the battlefield. Kimiko's stealth team, with the adult Cutie Mark Crusaders, struck from the shadows. They dismantled armored units with clever traps, precise knife strikes, and coordinated ambushes. Scootaloo provided scouting, Apple Bloom set mechanical traps, and Sweetie Belle used minor magic for distractions. Kimiko moved like a ghost through the chaos, signing quick commands that her new friends followed perfectly. Fluttershy flew above the battlefield, using her matured stare on any Vought soldier who made eye contact. Many froze in place, dropping weapons as overwhelming guilt and calm washed over them. "Please stop fighting," she whispered, her voice somehow carrying across the noise. Discord popped in and out of existence like a chaotic whirlwind, turning weapons into rubber chickens, armor into frilly tutus, and entire squads into confused garden gnomes. "Chaos is the ultimate spice of battle," he cackled. At the center of it all, Twilight, Starlight, Celestia, and Luna formed the magical backbone. Twilight cast powerful shielding spells that protected allies from energy blasts. Starlight created binding fields that immobilized groups of enemies. Celestia and Luna channeled solar and lunar energy in devastating coordinated strikes, pushing back the rift itself. The combination was devastating. Vaught's technological brutality met Equestria's harmonious creativity and the boys' ruthless efficiency. Where one side provided raw power and violence, the other added beauty, precision, and heart. A-Train was eventually overwhelmed by Rainbow Dash's speed and Applejack's powerful bucks working in tandem. Black Noir, too, was driven back by Homelander's newly focused attacks and support from below. The armored tactical forces began to break under the relentless, colorful assault. As the battle reached its peak, the combined forces pushed Vaught's invaders back toward the unstable rift. The air filled with explosions, rain booms, laser fire, laughter, and battle cries. The tide had turned decisively. But closing the rift permanently would require one final, coordinated effort. Chapter 9, Resolutions and Reflections. The battlefield fell into a heavy, exhausted silence as the last of Vort's forces were driven back through the unstable rift. Smoke curled from craters left by explosions, apple trees lay uprooted in neat rows from powerful bucks and shockwaves, and colorful confetti mixed with debris littered the ground like strange battlefield flowers. The air still hummed with residual magic and the faint scent of gunpowder and singed grass. Twilight Sparkle stood at the center of it all, breathing heavily but triumphant, her horns still glowing faintly. "We did it. They're retreating." The victory wasn't without cost: minor injuries, exhausted fighters, and damaged orchards, but Equestria's defenders and their unlikely allies stood tall. In the skis, Homelander slowly descended, his cape torn and suit scorched. Black Noir too had been forced back through the rift in their brutal duel. For once, Homelander didn't gloat. He landed near Celestia, who approached him with a gentle smile. From within his suit, he pulled out the pristine white feather she had given him earlier. It remained untouched despite the battle. "You fought with focus today," Celestia said softly, "not just with rage. That is the beginning of true strength." Homelander stared at the feather for a long moment, his usual arrogance cracked. "Maybe your world isn't completely useless," he muttered, voice unusually quiet. He tucked the feather back inside his suit, closer to his chest this time. Nearby, Butcher wiped blood and dirt from his face. Still grinning wildly as Applejack trotted up beside him, the farm pony had a few bruises but looked proud. "You fight like a mad bull, Butcher, but you protected my farm. I appreciate that." Butcher chuckled and offered her a cigar, which she surprisingly accepted. "You crazy colorful bastards actually restored a sliver of faith in me. Don't lose this place, farm girl. It's too good for the likes of our world." They shared a quiet drink among the damaged trees. A deep, unspoken respect solidified between the vengeful human and the honest earth pony. Maeve stood tall in her battle-worn but still radiant crimson and gold armor, surrounded by royal guards who now looked at her with genuine admiration. Rarity approached and immediately began fussing over the scratches. "Darling, you were magnificent. A true warrior queen. Never let anyone diminish you again." Maeve pulled the unicorn into a surprisingly gentle hug. "Thank you for the armor and for reminding me who I really am." Frenchie and Pinkie Pie surveyed the colorful wreckage of their cannons with matching exhausted grins. Pinkie bounced despite her tiredness. "That was the best party battle ever. We make a great team." Frenchie laughed and ruffled her mane. "You turned destruction into art, Pinkie. I will never forget this." He handed her a small, custom explosive device shaped like a cupcake for future celebrations. Kimiko sat quietly with the adult cutie mark crusaders who were patching up small cuts and excitedly recounting their stealth missions. Kimiko signed with soft, sincere movements. "Thank you, you fought like real sisters." The three mares hugged her tightly, making her smile, a rare, genuine expression of peace. Huey and Annie stood with Twilight and Starlight near the rift site. Huey looked out over the battlefield with wide eyes. "I can't believe we actually worked together like this. Your world, it gives me hope we might fix ours someday." Twilight placed a comforting wing over his shoulder. "Hope is the first step. You've already taken it by choosing to fight for what's right." Starlight nodded. "And you helped us see that even in the darkest worlds, good hearts still exist." As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden light over the recovering fields, the group gathered once more. Discord snapped his fingers, cleaning up much of the debris in a swirl of chaos magic while leaving the orchards mostly intact. Laughter mixed with tired sighs as stories of the battle were shared, Rainbow Dash boasting about outmaneuvering A-Train, Pinkie describing her explosive confetti masterpiece, and Butcher recounting his charge alongside Applejack. The reflections ran deep. Bonds that had begun as wary alliances had strengthened into something real. Even Homelander seemed quieter, more introspective, the weight of Celestia's words and the battle's lessons settling over him. Yet they all knew the rift still needed to be closed permanently. One final push remained. Chapter 10: Goodbyes and New Beginnings. The final unstable remnants of the rift shimmered above Sweet Apple Acres like a dying wound in the sky. The sun had set, and stars were beginning to twinkle over Friendship City. The battlefield had been mostly cleared, thanks to a combined effort of Earth Pony strength, Unicorn magic, and Discord's chaotic cleanup. What remained was a quiet, reflective atmosphere as both groups gathered near the rift for the closing ritual. Twilight Sparkle, Starlight Glimmer, Celestia, and Luna stood at the center, horns glowing brightly as they channeled the sealing spell. The air hummed with powerful friendship magic, interwoven with threads of hope, trust, and hard-won respect from the battles and bonds formed. Discord floated nearby, unusually subdued. With a snap of his fingers, he created a small, stable pink portal, no larger than a window, embedded in the wall of Twilight's castle library. "A little gift," he said with a mischievous grin, "for future visits, parties, and the occasional dose of beautiful chaos." The farewells began. Pinkie Pie bounced forward with two massive wagons overflowing with gifts, party supplies, cupcakes that somehow stayed fresh across dimensions, and several of her upgraded cannons. She tackled Frenchie and Kimiko in one final group hug. "You have to come back. We're best explosion buddies forever. Promise me you'll throw at least one. We saved 2 worlds party when you get home." Frenchie hugged her tightly, eyes misty. "I promise, Pinkie, you taught me joy can be a weapon too. I will miss you, my pink goddess of chaos." Kimiko signed with warm, deliberate motions. "You made me laugh again. Thank you." She gave each of the cutie mark crusaders one last hug before stepping back. Rarity approached Maeve, carefully adjusting the crimson and gold armor one final time. "You look every bit the queen you truly are, darling. Never forget your worth." The two shared a long, heartfelt embrace. Maeve whispered, "You gave me back my dignity. I won't waste it." Applejack stood before Butcher, removing her hat respectfully. "You're a mad, angry ape, but you're a good one. Don't let that darkness eat you up completely. There's hope out there, even in your world." Butcher gave her a rare, genuine smile and clasped her hoof firmly. "You crazy, colorful bastards restored a bit of my faith. Try not to lose this beautiful madness you've built. And if those corporate cunts ever come back, give 'em hell for me." Huey and Annie stood with Twilight and Starlight. Huey's voice was thick with emotion. "Thank you for showing us that another way is possible, for giving us hope." Twilight smiled warmly, her eyes shining. "Friendship is magic, no matter the dimension. The School of Friendship will now include interdimensional understanding in its curriculum. You will always be welcome here." Finally, Celestia approached Homelander. The man who had terrified nations stood unusually still. She levitated another pristine white feather, glowing softly with solar energy. "When the mask grows too heavy, let this remind you, true strength includes gentleness. You have the power to choose who you become." Homelander took the feather silently. For several long seconds, he said nothing. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, "Thank you." He tucked it carefully beside the first one. With the ritual complete, the main rift began to close. The boys and Maeve stepped toward the shrinking portal. They took one last look at the colorful world that had challenged everything they knew. As they crossed back through, they emerged into the ruined wreckage of Vought Tower's laboratory. The sterile destruction felt colder than ever after Equestria's warmth. Homelander floated silently, the 2 white feathers hidden against his chest. Butcher lit a fresh cigar, staring at the devastation around them. "Well, that was the weirdest fucking adventure of my life." Frenchie grinned tiredly. "I miss the pink one already." Kimiko signed with quiet determination. "We will protect both worlds." Annie looked at her team with renewed fire. "Let's burn Vought down, and maybe bring a little harmony back with us." Back in Equestria, as the main rift sealed completely, the small pink portal in the castle library shimmered softly, a permanent bridge between 2 very different worlds. Twilight smiled as she looked at her friends. "This isn't really the end, is it?" Pinkie Pie bounced happily. "Of course not, silly. It's just the beginning of the best crossover parties ever. In both worlds, life would never be quite the same again." The end.
That's all, Zipsters! Like like and subscribe.